Put your red shirt on and a brown coat too. Everybody's joining the crew. We got just one ring that we rule them all. Hope you'd remember your towel. Get your Ulu feathers and your needler guns. A sonic screwdriver or a sword +1. Use Valerian steel if it will get you to come. To the pit tank. To the pit tank. The Rocky Mountain pit tank.
Hi, I'm Guy.
Hi, I'm Brent.
Hi, I'm Alexa.
And this is Geek Tank, your very smart podcast. Today we're going to talk about smart homes. And I have brought Brent with me because Brent is smart in these things. Brent is smart. We look for things to make us go. So, thank you for joining me today, Brent. I appreciate it.
No problem.
Although
Always
I do
happy.
kind of miss you over there on the side saying, I am Brent.
Oh, here.
There. Thanks. Wait. I'll put it in there. Once you do that, I'll put it on the screen because that's important. You're like, there we go. There. Okay. So let's talk a little bit about smart homes. What are smart homes?
Well, hi, Dustin.
And he's watching us in Wyoming. What part of Wyoming? That's top secret.
Mm-hmm. That's a Chelsea thing.
That is true. Chelsea's probably also driving through Wyoming, somewhere near or around Destin.
Yeah.
So, what are smart homes? Let's talk smart homes.
Smart homes are defined in a couple different ways, but a lot more people are seeing them along the lines of the technology of it all, like Alexa, Google, cloud services like that. But it comes down to automating things inside your home, lights, AC, doors locking, that type of stuff. So then that way, well, it helps you in the long run of being able to do things with it all. So just all depends on how deep down a rabbit hole that you want to go down.
I was going to say, I noticed the air quotes there on the homes.
Yeah.
Do you have opinions on this?
Well, I'm a big tech guy. I do a lot with computers and such. And my home is, or my apartment, I should say, is slowly moving into the automation world with it all. But again, it's an apartment. So there are some downsides and plus sides to that. And it just all depends on really what you want to do with it, too. If you want to make it easy of going, computer or Alexa, turn on light X or something like that. Trying not to activate anyone's Alexa because it will, as yours does. But yeah, you can easily do stuff like that.
I'm just saying.
Yeah. Me personally, I only have like two of my lights here that do it, and there's so many different ways of doing the same thing and controlling it. A lot more of the technology depends on where you are and what you want it to do, too.
Sure.
So.
Right. So the reason I asked that, obviously, I am a fan of automation on this one. And I've got an awful lot of lights and lighting in this place automated out. So as you can probably tell. So I love the idea of this. And my house just got markedly smarter over the last month. Now I have control over my front door, not just the lights in here, but I have control of my air conditioning units. And I added a water sensor to my basement because we constantly had small minor floods in there all the time. And it's always from different sources, but it always ended up in the same place, which was weird. Like we have a utility sink to the left of our washer, and the little sock thing that catches all the lint came off and clogged the drain while laundry was going. So of course it overflowed the sink. And then at some point in time, someone closed the door to the refrigerator, which caused our little water jug in there. It was just leaned forward just enough that when the door closed, it pushed the lever and started running and draining all the water, which then promptly went into the basement. And then we had our sink gave up the ghost, the kitchen sink, which promptly drained into the basement. So, I mean, it's never the same thing, but it always seems to be in the little utility section of my basement. And I don't find it for 2 days, you know. Then I find out that there's water there, and I'm like, well, what? You know, it's like,
what happened?
Yeah. So now I have a water sensor which sits down there and waits for something to happen and stuff. And so that's good. And of course, we just got a Roomba, and the Roomba is also controlled. So now we're going to be able to chase George around with a Roomba. And that was part of our battle plan, too. So,
yeah.
But I mean, everything is, I now intentionally purchase items that are compatible with Alexa specifically to do this job. So,
and you went the cloud route too with it.
Yeah. I mean, it's that way. There's no internal hub or anything like that. The hub is the Alexa.
Yeah.
I even bought a second Dot because it came with one of the devices that I purchased. So I'm going to get the round ball and replace the puck, which I've got the little hockey puck right here. And I'll put the hockey puck in my bedroom. That way we can do IPv6, right? Thank goodness for IPv6.
Yeah, that's a different rabbit hole.
I feel like Dustin just like opened the rabbit hole up right for us. So what is Dustin talking about with IPv6?
So when it comes to home automation, there's a couple of different thought processes. You went the direction of the cloud. Things like Alexa, Google. Those are, you have the single individual little device. For example, my remote, it has built-in Alexa because this is part of the Fire Stick setup. Then you have Google has theirs with their Chromecast, same thing. Then you have self-hosted systems, things like Home Assistant, OpenHab, SmartThings. And those are things that I typically like because they're not cloud-based. That's physical hardware inside your home that you have and you control. I showed it to you earlier, my actual interface. Here, I'll show it again real quick. So if you want to put that up. But it allows me to have full control over my home instead of sharing it with other people or other things that I give permissions to. Here you can see I can turn on my lights or change their color depending on what I want them to do. You can't see them because of my angle, but they turned on, they turned off. I can track my cell phone where I'm at. That's kind of what the map does here, and different things that can help me out. And as you see, it breaks down by room and such. While with Alexa, you have that same aspect and you have that same ability with it all, but a lot more of it is going to be cloud-based. Everything is through Amazon or through Google with their services. It just all comes into which one do you prefer with it. So
and I mean, you know, and that is part of, there's a number of, this makes a good topic because there's a number of things to kind of contemplate and ponder here. I personally subscribe to what I call my sister's law, which is there's 350 million of us and only like 2,000 of them. So the odds of anybody actually listening to me or actually trying to get in are kind of slim. And I like the ability to use the C word to trigger Alexa. because, of course, as a Trekkie, that's so much fun. I mean, I walk in every morning and I just say, you know, I could say the same thing. Computer, lights, and it works just like it does in the show, right? I mean, and that's just so cool to me. It's like, you know,
And it is, yeah.
it is.
With that interface I showed you too, you can actually, there are customizations out there for it to turn it into an LCARS display.
Sure.
That's one of my end goals later on down the road once I learn a little bit more programming. And yes, I will share with you, Guy, if you do go the self-hosted route.
Well, I might.
Yeah.
And I never know. I mean, there may come a time where I decide I don't like to have cloud-based. I'm aware, but I mean, honestly, so this brings me sort of to another rabbit hole, which is, I mean, to me, I actually kind of like Amazon knowing what I like.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a reason for it. And that is they're going to direct marketing to me anyway. It doesn't matter whether I give them the information or don't give them the information. If I don't give them the information, then they're just going to send Viagra ads my way. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
At least now I get Eagle Moss and I get starships and, you know, stuff like that. That all, you know, that's the kind of stuff that gets directed my way. And that's a much more entertaining thing. You know, Paramount Plus ads, even though I've got Paramount Plus. Anyway, but I mean, you know, it's all right. I don't mind seeing little commercials for Lower Decks. I don't mind seeing commercials for Picard. That's a much happier timeline for me whenever I'm out and about. So I kind of, you know, that was a decision I had made, but that's a personal decision. Everybody has to make that decision themselves. And a lot of people much happier not letting anybody know and getting Viagra ads. That's fine for them. They're okay with that, you know.
Yeah. Well, when it comes down to cloud-based and or home-based or server-based, something that's in your home, the biggest question is really more so, how long is X going to be supported?
Right.
That's a lot. Unfortunately, within the home-based or server-based at your personal residence, one of the bigger companies is starting to stop even supporting their hardware. Smart Things, about 6 months ago. Yeah. They said that, well, we're not going to do this anymore, but we're still going to do the software. It's just we're not going to make the products now. So everyone has to go through these third-party vendors. And yes, that's okay. A lot more of their communication protocols is the same. And here in the next 2 years, supposedly, we're going to have the standard for it. There is a standard that they're working on. And it's actually between the big ones: Sony, Amazon, Google. They're part of it. Also, even the IKEA people are part of it too, with theirs.
Yeah, but the IKEA people, you have to assemble it though. You just get the code and a compiler.
That one's actually easy. You just plug it into a wall.
So that is part of what I kind of have thought about. And I've been this way since the beginning. I mean, and when I say the beginning, I mean like when I started getting into computers. I real early on wrote a lot of my stories intentionally in Microsoft Word, knowing that it's likely that Microsoft Word will still be around in a year or two, and it has held true. I can still pull up documents that were written in Microsoft Word back in 1991.
Yeah.
And they still load into Word, and I can still read them, you know, and stuff like that. Whereas I did have for a while there some other writer. I don't even remember what it was called. I think it might have been called Writer. And you can't even read it. It's garbled mess. It's just trashed. Luckily, I only wrote one story in that, so it wasn't a great loss. But that is something that, you know, future proofing is an important thing.
It is.
Now, on the same token, I chose Alexa over Google because of the fact that I can use the C word, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, WordPerfect still loads because Microsoft bought it. Or something. Something happened, but I noticed that my WordPerfect documents also still load.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a thing. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing is that but how do we know that at some update it may decide that that's no longer acceptable?
Yeah.
And I'll bet you that'll be about the point where I'll be like, that's it, I'm done,
Mm-hmm.
because I get a lot of the joy out of just doing the thing, you know.
Yeah.
And so a lot of my, I have done far stupider things for far less reasons. But my
Yeah.
whole reason that I'm here is so that I can do the Star Trek thing. Although I found out recently that there is a small amount of intelligence going on too, because my wife will get up in the morning and alert and say, turn on the coffee. And that's all she
Mm-hmm.
says. And the coffee pot turns on downstairs. Oh, by the way, our coffee pot's automated too. And the coffee pot will turn on downstairs. And that's not the words that I said. That's not what I programmed in here. So it interpreted what she said. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was pretty clever. I didn't even know it could do that because that's not the verbiage I used. And I'm used to computers. You didn't say the exact words I asked for, so I don't know what you're talking about. But
Yeah.
she just says, turn on the coffee, and the coffee pot turns on downstairs. I'm
And
like, cool.
that's one of the things when you go with like the bigger ones, Amazon and Google. I mention them because those are the ones that everyone knows about and everyone uses.
Right.
And it kind of turned into a little bit of a war between those two, kind of like the old Mac and Apple, or Apple and IBM days that you and I probably remember fondly.
Mm-hmm.
And it still is ongoing though, but it's the fact that a lot of it does actually integrate with the AI, the artificial
Yeah.
intelligence of it all too. So they learn this person says this, meaning this. So
Right.
we turn it on and we do this for them. So
I think that's actually, of all the things, both slightly terrifying and cool at the same time.
mm-hmm.
We've got solar panels on our house now, and very soon we're going to hook that up. They're not hooked up into the mains yet. But when they are, then Alexa should be able to give me a report on the output of my panels.
Mm-hmm.
Yet another thing that what I'm looking for is, a morning report on the status of the house.
Yeah.
The doors are locked, the solar panels are producing, 3 megawatts. The weather outside is 14 degrees Celsius. It's expected to rain today, yada, 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 yada. She gives me a weather report right now, but the weather report is localized to the city. And I now know that I can localize it to where my phone physically is.
Yep.
So she just learned that one like 2 days ago. So she now knows where my phone is, and now I can do scenes, which is also really cool, where it now knows that since my phone has approached my house to open my garage door, transfer the lights to a different set, turn on the air conditioning units, yada, yada, yada. So there's a certain amount of real interesting dynamics.
And that's where a lot more of the home automation is going to with it all. If I am at work or I'm away from the house, well, I don't need my AC running at whatever temp it's running at, and I need it, don't need it hot, don't need it cold, because I'm not there. So you can kind of set that up. One of my biggest things talking to my parents and to kind of move it into that as well is they are what's called snowbirds. They split their time 50% in one state and then 50% in a warmer climate.
In a warmer state.
Yeah. And it's exactly during winter. And it's like, well, when you're not at home, stuff like this can monitor your pipes just like you have. Make sure that there's no flooding. If it does, it gives you a warning. And if you get that warning, then you know we got to get the plumber out there, or we call our son, or we call the neighbor to go check on it. there's all sorts of things like that. Also, with it, you can do things like one of the biggest ones for me has been turning on and off alarm. Like I said, I'm in an apartment. That means that anyone in the apartment complex can come in whenever they want because they have a key. Yeah, they don't because there
No,
are rules against it. But
there are
still,
rules against it, but still.
if someone does want to come in, I want to know what time they come in, how long they've been here, and what they were doing. I'm not going to assume that they're going through my underwear drawer, but it's like I want to know what they're doing, what's going on, and monitor them while they're in my home. And that's one of the things. Um, Pets
Well,
too.
I got a ring, so I love my house, so I put a ring on it. But I got a ring on the front door now, and it signals me when there's motion within range of the front door.
Mm-hmm.
The first day that it was on, some guy wandered into my backyard and wandered back out. Later on, I found out it was one of the solar people who were working on the solar panels, but I was still like, they're just rando people wandering around in my yard. What's going on? And it was useful to know that. I also happen to know exactly when the mailman comes.
That's always a good one, especially when you're waiting on your package from Amazon.
Yep. I noticed also that UPS, as soon as I put a ring on it, UPS has been known to just walk up and they just push the button right away and walk away. And that's awesome because then the ring triggers it triggers on my phone, triggers on the Alexa, everything triggers. And I'm like, oh, I guess my package is here. Porch pirates don't stand a chance. Because like I am out there within like a minute and a half. And so it's really cool. But that also brings up other, like really seriously cool automation effects here in the I now can monitor a good portion of my yard at night and right?
Yeah, Dustin.
I am sure that is exactly what happens. Dustin's saying that we catch more meteorites now because the rings pick them up. And that is pretty cool. And that might not be a bad thing. I've been thinking about setting up a weather cam. Its entire job is to just watch the weather. I'm on a hill where I am on the house. I'm on the side of the hill, so I've got a good clear view of the mountains and a good clear view of downtown. Especially from right back here, because we're on this rise on either side, so all the houses around us are lower.
Yeah.
And so because of that, except for that direction, this direction and that direction, west and into town, are both wide open. And so I've been thinking about putting a weather camera that just sits out there and watches, especially weather coming in over the mountains, because there's always, that's really cool to watch it just kind of, creep
Crawl
over the
over
mountains.
and,
Yeah. Or, fireworks downtown during the 4th of July, because, I got a clear view to downtown Denver and you can just see the fireworks and, also cool. So I've been thinking about a number of things where it's not just monitoring to see if some evil creep is in your yard. I mean, there's other cool stuff Dustin's bringing up. It's a good point.
Yeah, and a lot of it too is you look at it with even some of the home-based stuff too. A lot of people, they do Raspberry Pis, which is a small little microcomputer the size of a cell phone, maybe smaller, and that's what they run theirs on. And a lot of them too are also setting it up to do Christmas lights.
Yeah.
So come Christmas time, if they had permanently set up lights outside, then they can kind of just, oh, well, it's Christmas, so let's do the Christmas lights and have it set the music and do all that dancing stuff that you see on YouTube around that time of year and everything else. So yeah, it's really nice to integrate that type of thing. Me personally, I'd put a camera in the flagpole out in my front yard if I had one, and that way I can watch not only my yard but my neighbors and everyone else and keep an eye on stuff. And to me, it's a little bit more of a security question when it comes to home automation than it is with the pretty and what else can I do. I've I've been, well, as you know, I've been in the military, so a lot more of what I think about is the military side of a lot
Which
of it
makes
all.
total
So,
sense. I mean, that I, on the other hand, am goofy and weird, and so all of my things are goofy and weird side.
yeah.
But I mean, this becomes sort of my own little starship in its own way. And the
Hmm.
more I automate it, and that's kind of cool, you know.
Yeah.
But the ring, that's a good point. I just thought about that. There was a somewhere along the line, about 2 years ago now, this guy was pulling a trailer like a camper,
Hmm.
and he pulled into the entrance of our subdivision, and the camper was on fire. The trailer was on fire. So he unhitched it and drove off and
Hmm.
left the camper, which then promptly burned down in the street, taking out like my neighbor. My neighbor had just put up a brand new fence. Like literally, that was his summer project, and this happened about this time in 2019. So
Yeah.
so about August or something, he'd spent June and July putting in this brand new beautiful fence, and this idiot parks this thing right in front of it, which promptly burns down half of his fence and melts the siding on his house. And you know, they come out, the fire department came out, put out the trailer and everything like that, and hauled it away. But then they were going around asking who had rings, who could have seen it. And I was sitting there going, because I had the perfect view from my front door of that.
Hmm.
His ring catches my backyard, but my ring catches the entrance of the subdivision. And so, we've all been kind of talking in the HOA. We've all been kind of, not HOA, in the whatever subdivision meeting.
Neighborhood association.
Neighborhood,
Yeah.
thank you. It's the big words. Neighborhood association. We've all been talking and going, well, we all should get rings so we can all, cover each other and sort of see what's happening. And so this is the first time I've gotten a ring, and I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, because it's like kind of
Yeah.
cool that now I can watch the front. So there is a certain amount of it's cool to be able to do that in my
Hmm.
book.
And then it always comes with the inheritance risks, though, whenever it comes to technology in general. But you also see the upside of it all too. Me personally, yeah, inside my apartment, I have 2 video cameras set up. Actually, I had to take one down for today's show, which, yeah,
Thank you.
it's fine. I just put it back once I'm done. But it's simple. It's easy to set those up and have it set up, and you can have triggers to do all sorts of things. I'm looking at doing a third one because, as you know, I ride a motorcycle,
Mm-hmm.
and at night, when I park my bike, I'd like to have a camera on it to see if anyone messes with it, tries to steal it. If it does, if they do, then I can have a video of them doing it and that type of
Right.
thing. And again, apartment living is a lot different than house living.
Right,
So
right, definitely.
it's
Well,
more
and
of
I
that
feel like
safety
when
net.
you're in a clump with other people, you end up with whatever culture is going on. Whatever is the culture of your apartment building, and even to some extent, what is the culture of my neighborhood?
Yeah.
Because like if this neighborhood was kind of a crappy neighborhood, then well, we'd have to deal with the fact that cars were stolen all the time, and we had a rash of car break-ins, but it had nothing to do with the people in the neighborhood, but because they were hitting our neighborhood and the neighborhood near us, which is where Nextdoor and social media groups like that are actually very, very useful,
Hmm.
because that's been a useful thing to have that ability. And we've got to remember that we are at the halfway point, which is to remind you that Geekway is sponsored by Geek Tank. Wait, huh? Geek Tank is sponsored by Kieran Games, Geekway Homes, Shiny Garden, which they're coming up on a con very, very shortly, and your mom. Hey,
Thanks,
Dustin,
Mom.
when is that convention? What's the convention info? While we're waiting here, because then you can give me that convention info, and I can do that.
Yeah.
Because I was going to look it up, but then I can't remember which one it is, and I always get confused. So I'm going to end up saying the wrong one. So since I happen to have Dustin right here, I'll ask him.
I think it's
So-
MythCon, isn't it? Because HexCon is
Hexicon's at the beginning of the year,
yeah.
and it's not. It's Whimsicon, I think.
Whimsicon.
Whimsicon. So, but I know I'm going to say it wrong, and I know I'll say the wrong date, and I know I'll say the wrong time,
Yeah.
and I'll start talking about Dustin Con, and then it will be all downhill from there. So, anyway, so there you go. Now let's talk about like the future of this. I actually have been kind of thinking a lot about automation because, frankly, I had no idea. You know what I mean? Like, I got the Alexa for free because it came with switching insurance agencies, amazingly enough. We were switching insurance agencies for the house, for the cars, yada, 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 and they sent us a dot. I was like, okay. And it was cool because whimsicon.com, and it is in September. Dustin, are you driving?
No.
I am not asking him questions if he's driving.
Naughty,
So-
naughty Dustin.
Yeah, right? Remember, Dustin, I used to be a driving instructor. Whimsicon.com. Whimsicon. Oh, he can do all of it. And
Yeah, he has it memorized.
Whimsical World Books. I feel like that's not it. Okay. Whimsicon.
I just copied and pasted it, and that took me to that. Yeah.
The books
Yeah.
by Sherry Fink and Derek Taylor Kent.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they look like lovely people. Why does whimsicon.com go there? Why is that a reroute? Is it org? Nope.
WednesdayConDenver.com.
No, Whimsicon Denver.
Yeah. As we're both trying to go there.
Yeah, we're trying to figure this out.
All right, I like that.
Nope. That's a dead thing. Whimsicondenver.com.
But when it comes to the home automation, that's
That's
kind of how I got into it too. Was one of the streaming services. If you paid for X amount of months in advance, you can get the Google Mini for free, and then they did one for YouTube TV. You can get the Google dashboard one, the Nest, for free. And so, yeah, I did both of those. So
the Nest is the next one I need to get. Sadly, that one's going to be a while. The Nest is sitting on a shelf. I don't get to get it for a little while. Biggest reason is because we don't have power right now to my thermostat. It still has the original 1978 furnace in this house, which was one of the things that was supposed to get repaired, but is out of our price range. Well, not repaired. It's running just fine.
yeah.
You know, but how long does that last?
Yeah.
So, and that's another thing I need to buy while we're here is a CO2 sensor to go downstairs that will alert if there's CO2 down there. Because that's really the big threat is, you know, the furnace will last forever or until it cracks the manifold. Once it cracks the manifold, then it's going to fill the house with CO2 and we all die.
Yeah.
So,
and that's what a lot more people are doing nowadays, especially with the home automation and that type of thing, is the safety aspect of it all. Smoke detectors, leak detection, as you've got the CO2 stuff as well. That way, if it happens, they don't sleep through it. They get noticed almost instantly when that happens. down the line, yeah, you're going to see a lot more. One of the YouTube guys I follow, he actually lives in an area, and they're an all Alexa area where Amazon went through and sponsored people to put Alexa compatible devices in their homes.
Right.
So you're seeing a lot of stuff like that too. Google, I haven't heard if they've done that, or so that's where that battle between the two big ones comes in too.
Right.
So.
Okay, I gotta try this. Computer, tell me about Whimsicon.
Here's the Wikipedia article on the new con. We hammered near the same con as an Indian actor, singer, director, filmmaker, and television.
I don't think it figured it out.
Through his career spanning over 30 years in Haiti films,
Computer,
Con has
stop. Computer, tell me about Whimsicon.
according to Wikipedia, Lord Peter Death Breathing Lindsay ESO is the fictional protagonist in a series of detective novels and short stories by Dorothy L.
Apparently, we're talking about
A dilettante who solves mysteries
protagonists in novels. Computer, stop.
So it looks like it's whimsicon.org there, Dustin, not .com.
I did org and it didn't go anywhere.
I just found it.
Yeah, I believe you.
Yeah.
But I've got this site can't be reached at whimsicon.org. Is it with a Y?
Yes.
That's why. There we go. We got it now. Okay, Whimsicon 2021. Looks like September 24th through 26th at the Delta by Marriott. That's up in North Glen. That's up at 120th and I-25. So for those of you who are local, this is a steampunk and costuming convention. So it's for steampunkers, it's for costumers, and it's for whimsiers. So, okay. Anyway, there you go. So moving on to automation, I was asking about the future of automation because, of course, yeah, that's a good solid point. I keep learning about the newer and more interesting things that can be done through automation. For example, putting a CO2 fire sensor down in the basement is a great idea. Right? We just learned a whole lot about the automation and interface between a human right there as Alexa went all over the place. I mean, it is a lot of fun to be able to do the red alert lights here and everything like that. And that is a lot of fun. But there's more to it. There is more to it. There's the ability for Alexa to raise an alarm if there's CO2 in the house, there's water in the house, or a fire. But I mean, also Alexa can alert us when the front door is opened at 2 a.m. That's a big deal. I just put a sensor on the door that makes Alexa respond when the door is opened. So, now Alexa does tell me these things. So that's kind of cool too. And, by the time NDK is over, I will have moved this one into the bedroom and put the big one up here so that we can have two of them. And that's because right now, of course, it doesn't matter how much Alexa squawks. There's nothing in the bedroom. So,
yeah. But
I'm going to get the bedroom secured so that we can turn off the lights too in there smartly.
So to kind of go to Dustin's thing with security systems, yes, security systems have been able to do that for years. But as a parent, like myself, my daughter, she doesn't live in my home. She lives with her mom. So by some of the tracking that I can do within my home assistant program, literally the name of the software is Home Assistant. I can see where she's at any given time with her cell phone and track where she's going, what she's doing. Also, with a security alarm, you still have to turn it on and off. But
Yep.
if you
We have to
integrate it
arm it.
with, yeah. But if you integrate it within the Home Assistant, you can set up the scenes or set up actions. If everyone's away from home, the alarm is already turned on and the doors get locked automatically, especially if you
Yeah, I
have
mean,
that person that's forgetful like myself.
yeah. But I think Dustin's asking, you know, as far as practicality goes, we've already had security systems. Yeah, it's making the security system much better. It's making the security system awesome because now the security system knows when you've walked away.
Mhm.
So it can say, huh, he's not here anymore. Lock, 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 turn all the lights off, whatever, set the alarms, everything, all that stuff. Sure. So I don't have to actually do what what we used to do back in the old days where you'd, close the door and then you had to type in the code. You had to wait for it to blink 3 times. Then you had to open the door and run outside and close the door and lock it in like 40 seconds or it calls the police,
Mhm.
like back in the day, those kind of security systems, which ironically my wife still has to do all the time at her school, which is still kind of entertaining and funny. But I find a lot of these things funny anyway. So, but I think Dustin's asking, what's the next level? What is the next level?
Um, I'm seeing a lot more of the whole world. So I've been working on home assistant type or home automation projects going on, 4 years now, 3 or 4 years. Um, so a lot of it is, I'm seeing a lot more of it as a security aspect. Yes, the lights and all that, that's the quirks of it, what people generally see. But I'm seeing a lot more people use it for that security thing where, oh, if I'm away from home, I'm traveling, especially when it comes to things like the social media where people post their pictures and they're gone. And they say never do that because you don't know who's looking at your pictures. And so it's kind of, I'm seeing a lot more of that too with even the home integration systems.
Sure.
Also, things like monitoring your power, where you said that you have your solar that's going to be able to tell you how much you're producing. Well, there are automations and there is hardware. A light socket right 2 feet away from me, I can actually put a particular type of plug in there and it'll report to my stuff how much power is actually being used by that individual socket, and then also how much power is being used by that entire room.
Right.
So then that way I can monitor that type of thing. As my new cat is.
I was going to say Tormund is over there.
Yeah, he's just trying to find a place to lay down on bed. I'm in my pseudo office, and it's not really an office yet.
Right. George has decided to come in here and pester us this entire show.
Yeah.
Probably because his kid's home, so he's with his kid. But that, I think the thing there, though, is, and this is the thing I'm liking, is I can actually get a morning report.
Mm-hmm.
Like Alexa at this point in time, she's not totally smart on how the house is set up at this point, but soon I could get a first officer style report, walk in the morning and say, Alexa, sit rep. And she could say, the solar panels are at X efficiency. There are no alarms in any part of the house. All the lights are operating. Your car is at 47% charge. And, stuff like that. I mean, like the cars, I got an email from my car telling me that it needs an oil change soon. I mean, like my car is emailing me. And I'm not sure how to handle the fact that my car is emailing me. My car is emailing me. So I know that our cars can talk to this too. So it's not just in a matter, and I think that's where, right. Well, and that's the other thing. That's a good point Dustin's got, which is we have to evacuate. We have to go. Now the home can alert me on the status of the home.
Yeah.
That if nothing else, that is probably the number one best concept I can think of for wanting your home automation to be internal,
Mm-hmm.
because you could theoretically put a Raspberry Pi core unit that's watching everything with a cell phone attached to its side. And as long as I've got solar power, this house will continue to operate at full power.
Yeah.
And so, and then at some point I'll put Tesla batteries in here, and then it'll run all night too.
Mm-hmm.
And so during a disaster, it could low power mode and just keep broadcasting as long as there's cell towers that are operating. It keep broadcasting reports on what the condition of the house is. That's not a bad idea. I mean, or you could get a satellite uplink.
Yeah, and then also a lot of it too is you mentioned Tesla walls. Well, how much battery charge do you have if you're not directly staying there in front of it? And there are ways to integrate that into the home automation stuff where you can go, oh, I've been able to produce, I'm storing this much power and I have this much battery life and the batteries are good at 80% and that type of thing. Right. Also with even the Tesla cars, there are integrations with that where it tells you, hey, you've driven this many miles, it used up this much of a battery charge. This is how long it's going to take you to get to the full charge, and you should be able to travel X amount of miles on the full charge. And it kind of gives you that information too.
You could also have maybe some kind, at some point you were talking about what's the future of this. I'm noticing that my drink has a QR code.
Yeah.
I just went to McDonald's and it gave me a QR code. Okay, that's great. But what if every item in your grocery list has a QR code? And as soon as you put it in the fridge, it's beeped in and then beeped out when you take it out of the fridge. So then you could actually say, you could literally have a point where during your morning sit rep, Alexa could say, you're also out of milk because your wife drank it. Because that happens. Like, she'll drink the milk and I'll go downstairs and I'll get ready for my cereal and there's no milk.
Yeah. And there's a lot of stuff that's doing it that way too with groceries and even someone such as myself. I like to use myself as an example because I'm one of those weird people. I know exactly how much food is in my home because I have a menu that goes throughout 1, 2, 3, and 4 weeks down the road. So then that way I know from night to night what I'm going to have. And it's great because then it helps me with my budgeting. And also it helps me keep track of what I take in and put out and that type of thing. So it's really great for that. And
any difference between that is surgically removed, right?
No, I don't know.
I'm making a Hitchhiker's reference.
So
I know you missed it, but that's
yep.
Okay.
Sorry, I read the books and that was like 20 years ago.
It's all good. There's a planet where it's a paradise, and so when you go there, you are weighed, and then when you leave, the difference between your entrance and your exit is surgically removed or added. Because it's Hitchhikers and everything's funky in Hitchhikers, but that's all right. But anyway, no, but that's a good point. Controlling your weight, controlling your food, controlling things like that could get markedly easier if everything had a QR code and got beeped in and beeped out whenever it came into the house and stuff like that. And all you had to do is just run it through the scanner, and then the house knows that and keeps a record of it. And then as you use it and throw it away, you put a little scanner by your trash can, you beep it when you throw it away, and it knows you threw it away,
And there are some refrigerators that are doing that too, but they use image AI. They take an image of it and they go, oh, this is X and this is Y. Well, this isn't in here anymore, so they must be out of that item, and let you know so you can add it to your shopping list. Or if it's your kid who pulled it out and left it on the counter, I won't mention my daughter by name, who's done
I was
that a
about to
couple of
say,
times.
I think you and I both have chillins who do the same thing.
Yeah.
We
So,
loves our chillins though,
mhm.
but yeah,
I
they'd
love my
stop.
minion.
Yeah, they'd stop just sticking the milk on the counter. Anyway, yeah. So, but yeah, I mean that's exactly right. That's image AI. I hadn't even thought about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, understanding what's in your fridge. I think that my fridge right now is just packed so densely it wouldn't be able to tell anything.
Well, and then also you have to look at it too with the. Um, I hate using the generation name, but the baby boomers, as they get older. Um, me, I'm classified as a millennial, but I grew up in that gray zone between Gen X and millennial because
Right.
I had just enough of the Gen X. But well, my parents are baby boomers. Yeah, they split their time right now, but as they get older, being able to monitor them if they have a fall or if they get hurt or something like that. With a lot of these automations, you can use that for you remember the old commercials, the little
I
lady
fall
who
and I can't
fell
get up.
and they can't get up, and they have that. Well, with some of the automation stuff, you can actually just have a camera that has that built-in AI, notices a person's fallen, they haven't moved in a little bit, and set off an alarm to
Mm-hmm.
notify people.
And
And
actually, I did that with my dad. That is literally what I did with him. We put a button around his neck that signaled the house, but it's the same principle. I mean, that was what we were talking about was what level of control and automation are we going to put in here to watch him?
mm-hmm.
Because he was what they were calling sundowning.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they call it. He'd get up at 2 a.m. and go make a sandwich or whatever. And so nobody was awake. There was nobody around
Yeah.
to see whether he was okay or not. I was horribly lucky. My father was cognizant and aware and himself up till the day he passed. Whereas my grandmother, on the other hand, had Alzheimer's.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason we had to put her in a home was when she burned the chicken that she put in the oven and then forgot it and then walked away, and then 5 hours later there's smoke rolling out of her oven.
Yeah.
And luckily my cousin was over at that moment, and he ran over and turned off the oven, put out the fire. But we realized that she will get to a point where she would burn down the house. So
Mm-hmm.
that was a thing, because she didn't remember anything. And that's a great use for automation as well. And I'll bet that as you and I grow older, because I'm Gen X,
Yeah.
as I grow older, and then we're only talking 20 years, 25 years before I start hitting the same age that my dad was at, this year, it's going to become more important that the house watches me
Yeah.
and keeps an eye on me. Um,
And then with your kids and everyone else being able to also just reach out whenever they want, and you have that video conference as well. There's or the home automation stuff can do that. Who did it? Facebook actually has their video thing now where you
right,
can literally call and have that person on a video conference call.
right.
The
And
stuff that they were
I
predicting
think,
in the 70s days are starting to come out now. So yeah.
right. I think back and 25 years ago was the turn of the millennium. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it was not quite, but it was pretty close to the year 2000, which for me seems like yesterday. So I have to kind of be cognizant and aware that the next 25 years are probably going to move quick.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to turn around and I'll be like, I'm 70, and I'm like, wow, how the hell did that happen? So that's probably a useful thing. So there's a lot going on with home automation that could be very fascinating in the next 20 years.
And beneficial to everyone too. Especially as we're getting, everyone talks about the whole climate change. Well, One of the things that they've also talked about is charging you for your carbon tax. How much can you
Right.
do? Well, that by having monitors and that home automation set up, it can help you monitor how much you're using and how much of that you're going to actually be responsible for too.
Right.
So,
Right. And I'm noticing that they're also doing things like putting in smart thermostats, smart, things like that, so they can dial back. Whereas before we just blasted air conditioning into a house and then only turned it off when it hit a temperature value. But now you could do what you were talking about before, where you leave the house and the temperature automatically, the AC turns down, the temperature can go up, into the 80s, which would be uncomfortable for me.
yeah.
I wouldn't be able to work here in the 80s, but if I'm not here, what difference does it make?
Yeah, and as you pull in, it turns it back up to start cooling
Mhm.
it off for you. Or if you're like me and you work in an office, when you leave work, you can't have it turned on. So by the time you get home, it's cooler.
Right.
There's all sorts of things like that where it's going to help prolong things in the long term too. But it's also, we as people who use that, we also have to be understanding that there are some things that are just going to be outside of our control too. There always
Right.
is with it.
Right. Well, and there are other things. The AC unit that I just put in the bedroom, it can be connected to the weather report. So if it knows that in the middle of the night, because this is Colorado and it's like effectively a desert, if the middle of the night it starts to go from 78 degrees and then suddenly plummets down into the 50s, it can turn off the AC pump and turn on just a fan and pass through 50-degree air, as opposed to the old dumb ones, which would just keep pumping, but this one will pass through the air and just let air through. And then it'll be nice 50-degree air blowing into it from outside. And, it can even do now it's plunged into the 40s. Oh, it's into the 30s now. Shut everything off. Don't
Turn
pump
on the
any more
heat.
air.
Yeah. And also there's another YouTuber I watch. He actually just bought a new house that has multi-zone heating and cooling areas.
Right.
So if someone's in a room, then the AC unit or the home automation system knows that person's in there. So it'll keep it whatever temperature that they tend to like it at. While in another part of the house, if no one's there, they'll keep it different. So then that way you're not using as much between each individual room. You're not trying to cool a whole house. You just got to worry about individual space within it.
Right. I think it's got some fascinating things. You know what I mean? It's like I'm fascinated by kind of what we can do here. You know what I mean on this? So there you go. I guess that's kind of, quick. I'm checking something here. Speaking of automation, well, I guess I can't get okay, never mind. I was trying to get my Ring to show me what was going on outside right now, but I can do that, but it's apparently, okay, never mind. It's fine. It's fine. Oh, it's all right. It's 9:00 anyway, so we're at the end of our show. But that's all right. I appreciate it. Thank you, Dustin, for joining us in the middle of Wyoming. I mean, because totally that's a thing. I mean, Wyoming is a thing, and I hope he makes it. I hope you make it back tonight. I mean, still Wyoming's a long ways out. So there's that. Okay, well, next week will be, I guess, I'm not sure whether I'll be here or not. I hope Troy's back. I hope Chelsea's back. Somebody's got to take control of this show. Who's in charge of this thing? If not, it'll be Brent by himself. Oh, well. But we've got NDK coming up, and that's going to be a big hit for, all of the things. So there's that. So cool. Well, guys, that's all the time we've got for today. I appreciate you being here. I've been Guy.
I've been Brent.
Open Alexa.
And this is Geek Tank.